The vast expanse of the Milky Way galaxy buzzed with life. Countless alien races had formed a grand federation, working together to explore the stars. Among them, humans were the newest and seemingly weakest members. They had joined the galactic community just a few decades ago, wide-eyed and eager to learn. But instead of a warm welcome, they found mockery and disdain. On the sprawling space station Nexus 7, the central hub of the Federation, Ambassador Sarah Chen walked through the bustling corridors. Aliens of all shapes and sizes hurried past her, some throwing curious glances, others sneering openly. She held her head high, ignoring the whispers that followed her. "Look, another human," a tall, blue-skinned alien muttered to his companion. "I hear they still haven't figured out how to terraform a planet without destroying half of it." His friend, a creature with 4 arms and glowing eyes, chuckled. "What do you expect from a species that took so long to leave their own solar system?" Sarah's hands clenched into fists, but she kept walking. This was nothing new. Humans had faced this treatment since day one in the Federation. In a nearby cantina, a group of human engineers sat huddled in a corner. They were here to learn about advanced alien technology, but most species refused to share their knowledge. The engineers sipped their drinks glumly, watching as other aliens mingled and exchanged ideas freely. "Hey, Earthlings," a booming voice called out. A massive reptilian alien lumbered over to their table. "I heard your kind still uses fossil fuels. Is that true?" His scales rippled with laughter. One of the engineers, a young man named Alex, stood up. "Actually, we've developed clean fusion technology. We'd be happy to discuss." The alien waved a clawed hand dismissively. "Save your breath, little human. Everyone knows your science is centuries behind ours." As the alien walked away, still chuckling, Alex slumped back into his seat. "Why do we even bother?" he muttered. Meanwhile, in the Grand Council chamber, representatives from hundreds of worlds gathered for an important meeting. Admiral Zixthor, a respected leader from an ancient race, was addressing the assembly. "And so we must increase our defense spending," the admiral concluded. "The Devourer Empire grows stronger by the day. We must be prepared." Murmurs of agreement filled the chamber. Then, a small voice piped up from the back. "Excuse me, but have we considered diplomatic options?" The room fell silent. All eyes turned to the human delegate, a middle-aged woman named Dr. Emily Reeves. She stood nervously, aware of the attention focused on her. Admiral Zixthor's tentacles writhed in irritation. "Diplomatic options? With the Devourers? Clearly, you humans know nothing of galactic politics." Laughter rippled through the chamber. Dr. Reeves felt her face grow hot, but she persisted. "On Earth, we've resolved many conflicts through negotiation." "Perhaps." "Enough," Zixthor boomed. "This is why humans are considered the cowards of the galaxy, always seeking to talk when action is needed." As Dr. Reeves sat down, dejected, the other delegates continued the meeting as if she hadn't spoken at all. Later that day, Sarah Chen met with her fellow human representatives in a small private room. The mood was somber. "Another day, another round of insults," Sarah sighed. "Sometimes I wonder if joining the Federation was a mistake." Dr. Reeves nodded. "They won't even listen to our ideas. How are we supposed to contribute if they've already decided we're worthless?" Alex, the young engineer, spoke up. "You know what's funny? Back on Earth, we used to write stories about how humans would be awesome in space. We'd save alien civilizations, outsmart advanced races. Humanity? Fuck yeah. We called it." He laughed bitterly. "Reality's a bit different, isn't it?" The room fell silent as they pondered his words. The contrast between their dreams and the harsh reality of their position in the galaxy was stark. But as they sat there, lost in gloomy thoughts, none of them realized that the universe had plans of its own. Plans that would soon turn their situation upside down and prove that sometimes reality can be stranger and more amazing than fiction. Little did they know, A storm was brewing on the edges of the galaxy. A storm that would give humanity the chance to show its true colors and change their status from the cowards of the stars to something far greater. The first rumblings of this change were already in motion, unseen and unheard. And soon, very soon, the entire galaxy would learn that underestimating humans was the biggest mistake they could make. The Galactic Federation's Central Command buzzed with unusual activity. Aliens of all shapes and sizes rushed through the corridors, their faces tight with worry. Something big was happening, and it wasn't good news. In a dimly lit war room, Admiral Zixthor's tentacles twitched nervously as he addressed the gathered representatives. "We have confirmed reports," he said, his voice grim. "The Devourer Empire is on the move. They've already conquered 3 star systems on the outer rim." A collective gasp echoed through the room. The Devourers were a terrifying race, known for their ruthless expansion and destruction of entire civilizations. "How long do we have?" asked a tall, insectoid alien. Admiral Zixthor's eyes darkened. "At their current pace, they'll reach our core worlds in less than a standard galactic year." Panic spread through the assembled delegates. Some shouted for immediate military action, while others called for evacuation of threatened planets. The cacophony grew louder until it seemed the very walls shook with fear. In the midst of this chaos, Sarah Chen, the human ambassador, sat quietly, her mind racing. She caught the eye of Dr. Emily Reeves across the room, seeing her own concern mirrored in the scientist's face. As the shouting continued, a booming voice cut through the noise. "Silence!" roared Graxthar, the massive reptilian alien. The room fell quiet. "We are the greatest powers in the galaxy. Surely we can crush these devourers like the insects they are." Murmurs of agreement rippled through the crowd, but Admiral Zixthor shook his head. "It's not that simple," he said. "The devourers have technology we've never seen before. Their ships can appear out of nowhere, their weapons cut through our strongest shields like paper." The room fell silent again, this time with a heavy blanket of fear. In the following days, the Federation scrambled to prepare. Warships were dispatched, planets began building defenses, and refugees from the outer systems flooded towards the core worlds. Amidst all this, the humans found themselves largely ignored. Their offers to help were dismissed or laughed at. "What could you possibly do?" sneered one alien official when Alex, the young engineer, tried to present some defensive plans. But the humans didn't give up. They watched, they listened, and they planned. One evening, Sarah Chen called a meeting of all human representatives on Nexus 7. They gathered in a small, out-of-the-way conference room, away from prying eyes and ears. "All right," Sarah said, looking around at the tired but determined faces. "We all know the situation. The Federation is in panic mode, and they're not listening to anyone, least of all us." Dr. Reeves nodded. "Their fear is making them irrational. They're reacting, not thinking." "Exactly," Sarah agreed. "But we've faced existential threats before. Our history is full of moments where humanity stood on the brink. And every time, we found a way to survive." Alex leaned forward, his eyes bright with an idea. "You know, I've been thinking. The Devourer's tech, the way they appear out of nowhere, it reminds me of something from Earth's sci-fi stories." The others looked at him curiously. "Go on," Sarah encouraged. "Well, what if they're using some kind of interdimensional travel, phasing in and out of our reality?" Alex explained, his words tumbling out quickly. "If that's the case, I think I might have an idea on how to detect them, maybe even disrupt their tech." For the first time in days, a spark of hope lit up the room. They spent hours discussing Alex's theory, refining it, adding to it. Dr. Reeves contributed her knowledge of xenobiology, suggesting ways the Devourer's physiology might interact with interdimensional travel. As the night wore on, their excitement grew. They were onto something. They could feel it. "This could work," Sarah said finally, a smile breaking across her face. "But how do we get the Federation to listen?" They all fell silent, pondering the question. Then, a young diplomat named Maya spoke up. "What if we don't ask for permission?" she suggested. "What if we just do it?" The room buzzed with nervous energy as they considered her words. It was risky, potentially suicidal even. But as they looked at each other, a silent agreement passed between them. "All right," Sarah said, standing up. "Let's do this. It's time to show the galaxy what humans are really made of." As they left the room, filled with a mixture of fear and determination, none of them realized they were about to change the course of galactic history. The underdogs were about to have their day, and the devourers wouldn't know what hit them. The stage was set. Humanity was ready to take the lead. The human team worked tirelessly in secret. They converted an unused storage bay on Nexus 7 into their makeshift laboratory, smuggling in equipment piece by piece. Time was not on their side, but determination burned in their eyes. Alex, the young engineer, stood before a complex array of devices cobbled together from spare parts. "If my calculations are correct," he explained to the others, "this should be able to detect the energy signatures of the Devourer's interdimensional jumps." Dr. Emily Reeves nodded, her fingers flying over a datapad. "And I've been analyzing the biological data we have on the Devourers. If they're phase-shifting between dimensions, it should leave trace markers in their cellular structure." Sarah Chen paced the room, her mind racing. "Great work, both of you, but we need more than just detection. We need a way to stop them." Maya, the young diplomat, spoke up from where she sat cross-legged on the floor, surrounded by historical texts. "I think I might have something," she said, her voice excited. "I've been studying Earth's military history, looking for inspiration, and I found this tactic called guerrilla warfare." The others gathered around as Maya explained the concept of small, mobile units carrying out surprise attacks against a larger force. "If we can predict where the Devourers will appear," she concluded, "we could set traps for them." A spark of excitement lit up the room. For the first time since the crisis began, they felt a glimmer of hope. Days turned into weeks as they refined their plans and built their devices. They worked in shifts, always keeping watch for curious aliens who might discover their secret project. One day, as Alex was fine-tuning the detection array, alarms blared throughout Nexus 7. The team rushed to the nearest viewport, their hearts pounding. In the distance, they saw flashes of light as ships blinked into existence. The Devourer fleet had arrived, far sooner than anyone had predicted. Panic erupted across the station. Aliens ran in all directions, some heading for escape pods, others rushing to battle stations. Over the comms, they could hear Admiral Zixthor barking orders, trying to organize a defense. Sarah turned to her team, her face set with determination. "It's now or never," she said. "We have to show them what we can do." They nodded, fear and excitement mingling in their expressions. Quickly, they gathered their equipment and made their way to the main command center. As they entered, they saw chaos. Holographic displays showed the Devourer ships cutting through the Federation's defenses like they were made of paper. Admiral Zixthor stood in the center, his tentacles writhing in distress. "Admiral," Sarah called out, pushing her way through the crowd. "We have a solution." Zixthor turned, his eyes narrowing when he saw the humans. "This is not the time for your foolishness," he snapped. "Can't you see we're under attack?" But Sarah stood her ground. "That's exactly why you need to listen to us," she insisted. "We've developed a way to detect the Devourer's ships before they phase in, and we have a strategy to fight them." The Admiral hesitated, conflict clear on his alien features. Around them, the command center fell quiet, all eyes turning to watch the confrontation. In that moment of silence, Alex's device began to beep. He quickly checked the readings, his eyes widening. "There's a large energy signature forming," he announced. "Coordinates 227 by 184. They're about to jump in a massive ship." Every screen in the command center confirmed his words a moment later. A giant Devourer battleship was materializing right in the heart of the Federation fleet. Admiral Zixthor looked from the screens to the humans, indecision clear in his eyes. The fate of the galaxy hung in the balance. Sarah met his gaze steadily. "Trust us," she said simply. "Let humanity take the lead." For a long moment, no one moved. Then, slowly, the Admiral nodded. "Very well," he said, his voice grave. "Show us what you can do, humans. The galaxy is in your hands." As the team sprang into action, setting up their equipment and explaining their plan, a ripple of surprise ran through the alien observers. The species they had dismissed as cowards were now stepping up to face the greatest threat the galaxy had ever known. Little did they know, this was just the beginning. Humanity was about to show the universe what they were truly capable of, and nothing would ever be the same again. The command center of Nexus 7 buzzed with frantic energy as the human team sprang into action. Alex's fingers flew over the controls of his detection device, while Dr. Reeves called out energy readings. Maya and Sarah huddled with Admiral Zixthor, quickly explaining their plan. "We need small, fast ships," Sarah said, her voice steady despite the chaos around them, "and volunteers who aren't afraid of a little risk." The Admiral's tentacles writhed uncertainly. "What you're proposing? It's madness," he muttered. "Maybe," Sarah agreed. "But right now, madness is all we've got." After a moment's hesitation, Zixthor nodded and turned to the command center. "I need volunteers for a special mission," he bellowed. "High risk, but it may be our only chance." To everyone's surprise, a diverse group of aliens stepped forward. Among them was Graxthar, the massive reptilian who had once mocked the humans. "I'm in," he growled. "Better to die fighting than cowering in fear." As the volunteers gathered, Alex and Dr. Reeves worked furiously to replicate their detection devices. "Each ship will need one," Alex explained. "It'll give you a few seconds warning before a devourer ship phases in." Maya stepped up, her eyes bright with determination. "Remember the plan," she said. "Hit and run. Don't engage directly. Use the element of surprise." Within minutes, a flotilla of small, agile ships launched from Nexus 7. Each was piloted by a mixed crew. Aliens of different species working alongside humans. Sarah found herself aboard the lead ship with Graxthar and a blue-skinned alien named Zira. As they sped towards the coordinates of the next predicted devourer appearance, Sarah felt a knot of fear in her stomach. This was it. Everything hinged on their plan working. Suddenly, Alex's voice crackled over the comm. "Energy spike detected. Coordinates 115 by 93. "That's right in front of us," Zira exclaimed. Sarah gripped her seat. "Everyone, remember your training. Wait for my signal." The space before them shimmered, and then, with a flash of otherworldly light, a massive devourer ship phased into existence. It was a terrifying sight, all sharp angles and ominous, pulsing energy. "Now," Sarah shouted. Their small fleet sprang into action. They darted around the devourer ship like angry hornets, firing precise shots at key points Maya had identified as potential weaknesses. The massive ship, caught off guard, struggled to bring its weapons to bear on the nimble attackers. "It's working," Graxthar roared, his earlier skepticism forgotten in the thrill of battle. But their victory was short-lived. More devourer ships began to phase in, filling the space around them with deadly energy beams. "Fall back," Sarah ordered. "Regroup at Point Alpha." As they retreated, she saw other Federation ships joining the fray, inspired by their daring attack. For the first time since the invasion began, the Devourers were on the defensive. Back on Nexus 7, Admiral Zixthor watched the battle unfold with growing amazement. "I don't believe it," he murmured. "They're actually pushing them back." Dr. Reeves nodded, her eyes fixed on the energy readings. "The Devourer's phase technology is incredible," she said. "But it has limits. They can't stay phased in indefinitely. And every time they phase out," Alex added excitedly, "we can predict where they'll reappear." As the battle raged on, News of the human strategy spread throughout the Federation fleet. More and more ships adopted their hit-and-run tactics, striking at the Devourers and vanishing before they could retaliate. Hours passed in a blur of adrenaline and fear. Sarah lost count of how many times they'd engaged the enemy, retreated, and attacked again. Her body ached, and her mind felt fuzzy with exhaustion. But slowly, surely, they were making progress. The once unstoppable Devourer fleet was being pushed back, one ship at a time. As they regrouped for another attack, Sarah caught sight of a Federation battleship moving into position. It was massive, easily dwarfing their small craft. For a moment, she feared they were about to be caught in a crossfire. Then, to her astonishment, a message came through on all channels. It was Admiral Zixthor's voice, filled with a newfound respect. "All ships, follow the humans' lead. They've shown us the way. Together, we can win this fight." A cheer went up across the comm channels. Sarah felt tears prick her eyes as she realized what was happening. They had done it. Humanity had proven its worth. But the battle was far from over. As they turned to face the next wave of Devourer ships, Sarah knew that the real test was just beginning. The fate of the galaxy still hung in the balance, and it would take everything they had to tip the scales in their favor. The battle raged on, a deadly dance of flashing energy beams and explosions against the backdrop of stars. Sarah's small ship darted between larger vessels, her crew working in perfect harmony. Graxthar handled weapons, while Zira piloted with incredible skill. Energy spike. Alex's voice crackled over the comm. "Big one, Sector 7. Sarah gripped her seat. "All ships in Sector 7, prepare for incoming." A massive Devourer mothership phased into existence, dwarfing everything around it. Its surface bristled with weapons, all powering up to fire. "Evasive maneuvers," Sarah shouted. Ships scattered in all directions as the mothership unleashed a barrage of energy blasts. Several Federation vessels weren't fast enough, disappearing in balls of fire. Back on Nexus 7, Dr. Reeves stared at her readings in horror. "That ship's energy output is off the charts," she reported to Admiral Zixthor. "Our current tactics won't be enough." The Admiral's tentacles twisted anxiously. "Then what do you suggest, human?" Emily's mind raced. Then, an idea struck her. "Alex," she called out, "remember that theory about disrupting their phase technology?" Alex's eyes widened in realization. "You mean, but we never tested it. It could backfire catastrophically." "We don't have a choice," Emily insisted. She turned to the Admiral. "Sir, we need your biggest ship, and we need it now." Meanwhile, in the thick of battle, Sarah and her team fought on. Their ship shuddered under near misses, shields straining against the onslaught. "We can't keep this up much longer." Graxthar growled, firing another volley at an approaching Devourer ship. Suddenly, Maya's voice came over the comm. "Sarah, we need you back at Nexus 7 immediately. We're implementing Operation Thunderbolt." Sarah's heart raced. Operation Thunderbolt was their most desperate, untested plan. "Understood," she replied. "We're on our way." As they raced back to the station, Sarah saw the Federation's largest battleship, the Stellar Hammer, moving into position. Workers swarmed over its hull, attaching strange devices. The moment they docked, Sarah sprinted to the command center. She found Alex and Dr. Reeves working feverishly on a massive version of their detection device. "Will it work?" Sarah asked, breathless. Emily looked up, her face grim. "It has to." Admiral Zixthor approached, his expression a mix of hope and fear. "Your team has proven themselves, Ambassador Chen. But this plan, the risks are enormous." Sarah nodded. "I know, Admiral. But sometimes you have to take a leap of faith." As final preparations were made, Sarah addressed the combined human-alien crew of the Stellar Hammer. "What we're about to do has never been attempted," she said, her voice steady. "We're going to turn the Devourer's own technology against them. If we succeed, we'll end this war. If we fail—" She paused, then continued with determination. "Well, Let's make sure we don't fail. The stellar hammer moved into position, its newly attached devices humming with power. The Devourer mothership loomed before them, a dark blot against the stars. All ships, clear the area. Admiral Zixthor ordered. Give the stellar hammer room to work. As Allied ships retreated, the mothership seemed to sense the threat. It turned its massive bulk, weapons charging. Now or never, Sarah muttered. She looked at Alex and nodded. Alex took a deep breath and activated the device. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, space itself seemed to ripple around the Devourer mothership. The massive vessel shuddered, its surface flickering like a faulty hologram. It's working, Emily exclaimed, staring at her readings. Their phase technology is destabilizing. The mothership's weapons fired, but the energy dissipated harmlessly in the distorted space around it. Slowly, inexorably, the massive ship began to break apart. A cheer went up across the Federation fleet as they watched the seemingly invincible enemy crumble. But their celebration was premature. As the mothership disintegrated, it released a final, desperate energy pulse. The wave struck the stellar hammer head-on. Alarms blared throughout the ship. Hull breach in sectors 3 through 7. Someone shouted. Sarah staggered as the deck lurched beneath her feet. Through the view screen, she saw other Devourer ships converging on their position, drawn by their wounded prey. As damage reports flooded in and enemy ships closed in, Sarah realized that their moment of victory might be short-lived. They had struck a critical blow, but at what cost? And could they survive long enough to see their victory through? The fate of humanity, and indeed the entire galaxy, now balanced on a knife's edge. Chaos reigned aboard the stellar hammer. Alarms blared, crew members shouted, and the ship groaned under the strain of multiple hull breaches. Sarah Chen steadied herself against a console, her mind racing. Status report. She called out, her voice cutting through the noise. Alex looked up from his readings, his face pale. The phase disruptor is offline. We took heavy damage from that energy pulse. Life support is failing in sections 3 through 7, Dr. Reeves added grimly. We're losing power fast. Outside, the remaining Devourer ships circled like vultures, preparing to finish off their wounded prey. The Federation fleet, caught off guard by the sudden turn of events, scrambled to regroup. Admiral Zixthor's tentacles writhed in distress. We need to abandon ship, he said, his voice heavy with defeat. But Sarah wasn't ready to give up. No, she said firmly. We've come too far to quit now. She turned to her team. Alex, can you get the disruptor back online? The young engineer shook his head, not without replacing the main power coupling. It's fried. And where's the nearest replacement? Sarah pressed. Alex's eyes widened as he realized what she was suggesting. In the engineering bay. But that section is exposed to space. Sarah nodded grimly. Then we'll have to go get it. As the others protested, Maya stepped forward. I'll go with you, she said, her voice steady despite the fear in her eyes. Sarah looked at her young friend with pride. All right, let's move. As Sarah and Maya donned emergency spacesuits, Graxthar approached. The massive alien looked at them with newfound respect. You'll need someone to watch your backs, he growled. I'm coming too. The unlikely trio made their way through the damaged ship, stepping over debris and helping injured crew members along the way. When they reached the airlock to the engineering bay, they paused. Remember, Sarah said, her voice slightly muffled by her helmet, we have 10 minutes of air. We get in, get the coupling, and get out. They nodded, and Sarah hit the airlock control. The door hissed open, revealing a scene of utter destruction. The engineering bay was open to space, debris floating eerily in the zero gravity. They activated their magnetic boots and stepped carefully into the void. As they searched for the power coupling, Devourer ships continued their assault on the stellar hammer. The ship shuddered with each hit, making their already treacherous path even more dangerous. There, Maya called out, pointing to a storage unit that had miraculously remained intact. They made their way over, fighting against time and the increasingly unstable environment. Graxthar used his immense strength to pry open the damaged unit, revealing the precious power coupling inside. Just as Sarah reached for it, a violent tremor shook the ship. Maya lost her footing, her tether snapping as she was flung towards the gaping hole in the hull. Without hesitation, Sarah leaped after her, using her suit's maneuvering thrusters to intercept her friend. She caught Maya's arm just as they cleared the edge of the ship, the two of them now floating in open space. Graxthar roared in their comms, "Hold on." He anchored himself and began to reel them in, his powerful arms straining against the pull of the void. As they dangled in space, Sarah saw the battle raging around them. Federation ships fought valiantly against the Devourers, but they were slowly being overwhelmed. In that moment, suspended between life and death, an idea struck her. "Alex," she called into her comm. "The Devourer ships, they're all connected to the mothership's network, right?" "Yes," came the confused reply. "But what does that? If we can't disrupt their phase technology directly," Sarah said, her mind racing, "maybe we can use their own network against them. A virus." There was a moment of stunned silence. Then, Dr. Reeves' voice came through, excited. "Of course. If we can introduce a virus into their network, we can disrupt all their ships at once." Alex finished. As Graxthar finally pulled them back into the ship, Sarah felt a surge of hope. They weren't beaten yet. Racing against time, they made their way back to the command center. Alex and Dr. Reeves were already hard at work, their fingers flying over keyboards. "We're repurposing the disruptor signal into a digital virus," Alex explained breathlessly. "But we'll need to get close to a Devourer ship to transmit it." Sarah looked out at the raging battle, her mind made up. "Then that's what we'll do." As the crew of the Stellar Hammer prepared for one final desperate gambit, Sarah realized that this moment would define not just humanity's place in the galaxy, but the fate of all species. They had started this journey as the cowards of the stars. Now they would end it as its saviors, or die trying. The Stellar Hammer limped through space, its hull scared and systems barely functioning. Inside the command center, a tense silence reigned as Sarah Chen outlined their final, desperate plan. "We need to get close enough to a Devourer ship to transmit the virus," she explained, her voice steady despite the enormity of what she was proposing. "Once it's in their network, it should spread to all their ships." Admiral Zixthor's tentacles twisted anxiously. "But how? Our engines are barely operational, and their weapons would tear us apart before we got close." A smile tugged at Sarah's lips. "That's where you come in, Admiral. We need a distraction." Understanding dawned in the alien's eyes. He nodded solemnly and turned to the communications officer. "Send word to all Federation ships. Prepare for a full frontal assault on the Devourer fleet." As the order went out, Sarah turned to her team. Alex and Dr. Reeves were putting the finishing touches on the virus, while Maya and Graxthar prepared for the dangerous task of protecting their exposed systems during the approach. "This is it," Sarah said, looking at each of them in turn. "Whatever happens, I want you all to know that it's been an honor serving with you." Graxthar let out a rumbling chuckle. "Who would have thought I'd be saying this to a human? But the honor has been ours." A cheer went up as the virus was completed. Alex handed Sarah a small data drive, his hands shaking slightly. "This is it. Our last hope." Sarah took it, feeling the weight of galaxies in her palm. "Then let's make it count." The battle that followed would be remembered for generations to come. Federation ships of all sizes launched a massive assault on the Devourer fleet, drawing their fire and attention. In the chaos, the battered Stellar Hammer slipped through the battle lines, inching closer to its target. On the bridge, Sarah watched the distance tick down. Sweat beaded on her brow as energy blasts rocked the ship. "Just a little closer," she muttered. Suddenly, a Devourer ship loomed before them, its weapons powering up for a killing blow. "Now!" Sarah shouted. Alex slammed his hand down on the transmit button. For a heart-stopping moment, nothing happened. Then, the Devourer ship before them shuddered, its lights flickering. "It's working," Dr. Reeves exclaimed, her eyes wide as she watched the readings. "The virus is spreading through their network." All around them, Devourer ships began to falter. Some drifted aimlessly, while others phased in and out of reality uncontrollably. A few simply winked out of existence, unable to maintain their presence in this dimension. The Federation fleet, seeing the Devourer's sudden weakness, pressed their advantage. Ships that had once seemed invincible now fell before their combined might. As the tide of battle turned, a message came through from Admiral Zix-4. "Ambassador Chen," he said, his voice filled with awe, "you've done it. The Devourer fleet is in full retreat." A cheer went up on the bridge of the Stellar Hammer. Sarah felt tears of relief and joy sting her eyes as she watched the enemy ships flee. In the days that followed, the full impact of their victory became clear. The Devourer threat had been neutralized, their once unstoppable technology rendered useless by human ingenuity and courage. Word of humanity's role in saving the galaxy spread like wildfire. Ships from every corner of the Federation arrived at Earth, bringing messages of gratitude and respect. The species that had once been mocked as cowards were now hailed as heroes. 1 month after the battle, Sarah stood before the Galactic Council, her team beside her. Admiral Zix-4 approached, holding a gleaming medal. For courage beyond measure, for ingenuity in the face of impossible odds, and for leading us to victory when all seemed lost, the Admiral intoned, "I present humanity with the highest honor the Federation can bestow." As he placed the medal around Sarah's neck, the chamber erupted in applause. Aliens of all species rose to their feet, their previous disdain replaced by genuine admiration. Sarah looked out at the sea of faces, feeling a swell of pride not just for herself, but for all of humanity. They had proven themselves not through brute strength or advanced technology, but through creativity, determination, and the courage to take a stand when it mattered most. As the applause continued, Sarah realized that this was more than just a victory over the Devourers. It was the dawn of a new era for humanity, and for the entire galaxy. An era where differences were celebrated, where courage came in many forms, and where even the smallest voice could change the course of history. The humans who had once been called cowards had taken the lead, and in doing so, they had shown the galaxy a new way forward, together.